They sat down. Silence. Then he spoke. "Yes," he said. "I knew about you before we matched. I didn't plan to fall for you, but I was sent." Kayla's mouth went dry. "Sent? By who?" Elijah looked tired. More tired than she'd ever seen him. "Your boyfriend, Marcus. He owes some people, serious people, money, and not just small money. Millions. They couldn't find him, but they found you." Kayla's whole body froze. "What are you saying?" she whispered. "I was supposed to get close to you," Elijah said quietly. "Make sure you stayed close to him. Keep you where they could watch. That was the deal, just surveillance. And then I met you, and I couldn't do it anymore. That's why I backed out. That's why I'm getting threats now. You're not just part of the plan anymore, Kayla. You're the one thing that ruined it." Tears welled up in her eyes. "So everything was fake?" "No," he said quickly. "Not all of it. Not after the first week, I swear it." But Kayla didn't know what to believe anymore. The man she loved betrayed her, and the man she trusted to fix her heart, he used her. She walked out without another word, because now she was done being in the middle. It was time to choose herself. But the people watching from the shadows, they weren't done with her yet. Kayla didn't cry this time. She didn't scream. She didn't break plates or throw things at the wall like in Nollywood movies. She just walked home in silence, breathing slow and steady, like a woman who finally understood what the storm really was. When she got inside, Marcus was in the kitchen, casually drinking water like he hadn't just messed up her entire life. "You were right," she said quietly. He turned. "What?" "Elijah told me everything." Marcus put the cup down slowly. "What exactly did he say?" She narrowed her eyes. "That you owe people big money, that they sent him to keep tabs on me, that you made me a target." Marcus sighed and rubbed his forehead. "Kayla, I didn't mean for this to get to you. I was just trying to buy time." "By putting me in danger?" she snapped. "You used me like a shield. I didn't know they would send someone like him, someone who would actually care about you." Kayla laughed bitterly. "Care? He lied. You both did." There was a long pause between them. Then Marcus said something that chilled her to the bone. "They're going to come for you now, Kayla, because Elijah walked away from the job. That makes you exposed." She stared at him, heart racing. "What does that mean?" "It means you need to leave, tonight. Stay somewhere else. Don't use your phone. Don't tell anyone." "No," she said, stepping back. "I'm not running, not for you, not for them." He walked toward her, eyes hard. "It's not about pride, Kayla. These people, these are not street boys. They don't threaten twice." But Kayla had had enough. Enough of being the quiet girl, the obedient one, the one who sat down and let people walk over her. She picked up her phone, opened WhatsApp, and texted Kemi, "I need to disappear for a while, please. Don't ask questions. Just trust me." Kemi replied immediately. "Come to my auntie's place in Ibadan. I'll send the address. It's quiet. No one will find you there." Kayla packed that night, one small bag, just essentials, no drama. Marcus didn't stop her. When she got to the bus park, she felt the eyes, someone watching. She didn't look back. She just kept moving like a woman with purpose. By the time she got to Ibadan and reached Kemi's aunt's place, a quiet compound in Bodija with tall trees and no noise, she finally let herself breathe. For the first few days, she stayed off her phone. No Instagram, no Elijah, no Marcus, just books, sleep and silence. But peace doesn't last when you're running from danger. One evening, as she walked to the small corner shop near the compound, she noticed a car parked by the street. Windows tinted, engine running. Her heart skipped. She turned and walked the other way. Fast. When she got back to the house, there was an envelope on the doorstep. No name, just her initials, K. A. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was a photo, a picture of her sitting with Elijah from weeks ago at the restaurant. And underneath it, in bold black marker, "We warned you." She dropped the paper, eyes wide, breath caught in her throat. They had found her. Even in Ibadan, even with no phone calls, no posts, no traces. Kayla sat on the edge of the bed, panic creeping in. Not for herself, but for the people around her. Kemi, her aunt, anyone close. She realized something very clearly then. She couldn't keep running. She had to end this, and there was only one person who knew how to fight these people. Elijah. Even if she didn't trust him, she needed him, because this time she wasn't just a woman caught in the middle. She was the target. Kayla didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window, staring into the dark, holding the photo from the envelope in one hand and her fear in the other. She wasn't even sure which one felt heavier. The next morning, before the sun rose, she took a bike to the nearest cyber cafe. Burner email. No trace. She sent one line to the only person who could help her now. "They found me. I need your help. K." Elijah replied in less than 10 minutes. "Where are you?" She hesitated, then sent the location. 2 hours later, a silver SUV pulled up outside the compound. It was him. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept either, but his face was sharp, serious. She got in. They didn't talk until they reached a safe house, small, quiet, on the outskirts of town. The kind of place no one finds unless you tell them where to look. Inside, Elijah handed her water and sat down across from her. "You okay?" He asked. "No," she said honestly, "but I'm here and I'm done running." He nodded slowly. "They were never after you, Kayla. Not at first. You were just leverage, but when I walked away from the job, they switched targets. You became the warning. So what now?" Elijah took a deep breath. "We end it. I've been gathering evidence, messages, bank transfers, voice recordings. I was supposed to delete everything after the job, but I kept backups. I thought maybe I'd need it one day." Kayla leaned forward. "And we give it to the police." Elijah shook his head. "These people own the police. We leak it too. The press, the right people. Once it's public, they can't hide. They'll be exposed. And Marcus," Elijah looked her dead in the eye, "he'll have to face his mess. No more hiding behind you." Kayla nodded. "Good." They worked all night, sent the files to 3 different journalists, posted anonymous tips online, shared screenshots, videos, names. By morning, it was everywhere. Breaking. Underground loan ring exposed in Lagos. Top clients involved in criminal web. Marcus's name was there. So was Elijah's, but not as a suspect, as a whistleblower. Within hours, Elijah's phone started ringing off the hook. Journalists, lawyers, people wanting statements. Kayla watched it all from the corner of the room, heart still pounding. She didn't know if they were safe yet, but she felt something new. Power. Later that day, Marcus called. She stared at the phone for a long second before picking up. "Kayla," his voice was low, almost begging. "You don't know what you've done." "No, Marcus," she said calmly. "You didn't know what I could do." He was silent. Then in a broken voice, he said, "I'm sorry." She didn't say anything back. She just ended the call and blocked his number. For good. Over the next few weeks, things slowly settled. Elijah's name was cleared. The ring was busted. Some of the key players ran, some were arrested, and Kayla, she started over, not with Elijah, not with Marcus, with herself. She moved to a new apartment, started a small business selling natural skincare products online. Kemi helped. Her peace returned. Elijah still checked in sometimes, respectfully. No pressure, just presence. She didn't know if their story would continue. Maybe, maybe not. But one thing was clear. She had loved a man who betrayed her. then trusted a man who lied to her. But in the end, she met her match, not Elijah, not Marcus, herself. The woman who finally stopped surviving and started fighting, and she would never let anyone dim that fire again. Daenerys didn't confront him right away. That wasn't her style anymore. There was a time when she met betrayal with tears and fiery speeches. Now she met it with silence, calculation, and the cold flicker of dragon eyes. She watched him. In the war room, she noticed how Jon's voice held weight, not just with Northern men, but even with some from the Reach and the Vale. Men who once praised her now looked to him when things grew tense, and Jon, in all his brooding stubbornness, didn't even seem to realize it. Or worse. He did, and pretended not to. She saw how the small folk whispered King in the North again, even in King's Landing. How his mercy in the field made him a folk hero. They loved him for the same things that made her look weak. When she burned those who defied her, they called her mad. When Jon forgave traitors, they called him just. The irony twisted like a dagger. They still shared the same bed, but something new lived between them. Not a child, gods, not that, but something darker. A wedge. He held her close some nights, kissed her shoulders in that quiet way of his, but he no longer whispered plans into her hair or asked for her counsel. He acted out of duty, not desire, and she could taste it. Jon tried to hide the struggle in his chest, but his soul was not built for deceit. The truth was devouring him from the inside. Every time he saw Daenerys seated on the Iron Throne, he felt the ghost of Ned Stark in the back of his mind. When the time comes, you must do the right thing, even if it breaks your heart. But what was the right thing now? The realm was fragile, fractured, holding together only because the two most powerful names, Targaryen and Stark, had married. If he challenged her, it would break the fragile peace. If he stayed silent, he risked watching her unravel into the very thing they swore to stop. And if he ruled beside her, that was never an option, was it? Daenerys wouldn't share the throne. That much became clear the day she summoned the council and announced she would not name Jon her co-ruler. Despite the marriage, despite the bloodline. "Let it be known," she said, voice sharp as a blade, "that I am Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. My husband is Lord Commander of the realm's defense. He is not king, he is not heir. That discussion is over." The room went quiet. Tyrion's wineglass shook. Varys blinked as if he couldn't believe she'd said it aloud. And Jon looked at her, the way a man looks at the sea right before it swallows his ship. Later that night, he didn't return to their chambers. Daenerys waited. Hours passed, the fire burned low, but she didn't move. When the door finally creaked open, it wasn't Jon. It was Missandei. "He's in the Godswood," she said quietly. "Alone." Of course he was. That's where he went, when the world made no sense. Trees didn't lie, gods didn't judge, and the dead didn't whisper about treason. She went to him anyway. He didn't look at her when she approached, just sat beneath the heart tree, ghost lying silently at his side. The red leaves rustled overhead like whispers of a time before either of them had been broken by thrones. "You didn't have to say it like that," he said after a while. Daenerys knelt beside him. "It had to be said." "No," he murmured. "You wanted it said. There's a difference." She touched his hand. It was cold. He didn't pull away, but he didn't squeeze back either. "I'm not your enemy, Daenerys. You're a Targaryen. That makes you the enemy, whether you want it or not." She said it without heat. Just the cold, brutal truth they'd both been dancing around since the wedding. They sat in silence for a long time, two people who had loved, ruled, and burned together, now unsure if they could ever stand side by side again. And in the shadows of the Red Keep, someone was listening. The one who listened in the shadows wasn't a spy by trade. He didn't have the cold precision of Varys or the subtle sarcasm of Tyrion. But he had something more dangerous: loyalty to the North, Sir Davos Seaworth had followed Jon through snow and blood. He'd seen the young man rise from bastard to commander to king, and now husband to a queen who radiated danger like heat from a forge. And in that brief moment beneath the godswood, Davos saw it in Jon's face. The storm was coming, and Jon had no ship left to sail through it. He knew what he had to do. By morning, the first quiet conversations began. Nothing treasonous. At first, just concern. A few northern lords sent ravens back home. Gendry, now Lord of Storm's End, started asking questions he hadn't dared before. Tyrion drank less and watched more. Sansa sent no messages, but began writing coded letters that never left her room. And Jon, he became a symbol, not because he asked for it, but because he didn't. People always trust the reluctant king more than the crowned one, and Daenerys, in her brilliance and fury, saw it happening again. First in Meereen, then in Westeros, the people falling in love with the man beside her, while fearing the woman on the throne. It broke something inside her. She doubled down. She held court with more fire, rode Drogon over cities she claimed as her own, stared a little too long at those who hesitated in their loyalty. Her speeches became laced with warnings rather than promises. And the worst part, she didn't realize she had already started to lose him. Jon watched her from a distance now. He fulfilled his duties, led the armies, kept the peace in the riverlands, ensured the harvest reached the starving south. But the nights he came to her bed grew fewer, and the way he spoke to her was no longer filled with softness. It was duty. Like watching a man feed a dragon, he once called his friend. Then came the incident. It happened in the Reach, in a small village called Brambleton. Word had reached Daenerys that the local lord refused to swear fealty, claimed the marriage was invalid, that a northern bastard and a foreign queen had no right to rule. She sent a rider demanding his submission. He sent back the rider's severed hand. Daenerys flew to Brambleton. Jon begged her to wait, to send a force, to negotiate, to show restraint. But she mounted Drogon and left before dawn, without a word. When she returned, the entire village was ash, not just the lord. Everyone, children, elders, farmers, horses still burning in the fields. She said it was war. She said resistance must be crushed or it would spread. But no one missed the haunted look in Jon's eyes as he walked through the blackened ruins, ash clinging to his cloak like judgment. That night, he didn't speak to her at all. The realm trembled. Sansa sent a raven. "This is your wife." Tyrion cornered Jon outside the small council chamber. "You married her to unite the realm," he said quietly. "But if she keeps ruling like this, there may be no realm left to unite." Jon didn't answer, because he didn't know what to say, because some part of him still loved her, deeply, foolishly, completely, and because a darker part of him was starting to believe the unthinkable, that love alone wasn't enough. Back in her chambers, Daenerys stood before the mirror, staring at her reflection. She looked regal, powerful, untouchable, and yet something inside her itched. A feeling she couldn't place, a whisper in her blood. He's slipping away. She slammed the mirror with a fist. Glass shattered. Missandei rushed in, but Daenerys waved her off. "Leave me." She walked to the window and looked out at King's Landing, the city she'd dreamed of ruling since childhood. It was hers now, and yet it felt like a cage. The people did not cheer her name in the streets. They whispered his. Whispers turned to rumors. Rumors turned to fear, and fear in Westeros always found a blade. By the time the small council gathered again in King's Landing, the tension was so thick even Grey Worm kept his hand close to his sword. The meeting began with meaningless chatter, grain routes, shipping delays from Old Town. But it wasn't long before Tyrion slammed his goblet onto the table. "We need to speak plainly," he said, "or we might as well light the Red Keep ourselves and save the Queen the trouble." No one laughed. Varys, pale and unreadable, spoke next. The burning of Brambleton cannot go unanswered. The people are frightened, the lords are restless, and her enemies are multiplying faster than her allies. She had to make an example, Grey Worm said coldly. The Reach would have risen against her if she didn't. Tyrion looked at Jon then. He didn't say a word, didn't have to. His silence was a wound the whole council could feel bleeding. Later that night, Tyrion cornered him on the castle wall. "She's losing the realm." "Jon!" "She's my wife," Jon replied quietly. "She's a queen." Tyrion stepped closer. "And if she keeps going like this, she'll be a tyrant. You know what that means. You of all people know." Jon didn't look at him. He just stared out. At the dark streets of King's Landing, at the people below, asleep under the rule of someone they didn't trust. "You're the true heir," Tyrion whispered. "You know it. I know it. She knows it. That's why she's pushing harder. That's why she's burning cities. She feels it slipping away." Jon clenched his jaw. "I don't want the throne, but it wants you." Jon turned to face him, now voice low and raw. "If I move against her, I doom everything. The peace we've built, the alliances, the North. She's still my wife." Tyrion didn't blink. "Then you'll die with her, and the realm will follow." That was the moment the real treason began, not with daggers, but with words. In the shadow of the dragon pit, a secret council gathered. Sansa, Davos, Tyrion, Gendry, Samwell Tarly, newly arrived from Old Town, carrying a copy of Rhaegar's annulment and Jon's birth scroll. It was official. It was irrefutable. Aegon Targaryen, born of fire and frost. They debated for hours, whether to move against Daenerys or not, whether Jon could be convinced, whether war would be worse than submission. Sansa, always calm, always watching, said it plainly. If she burns one more city, the realm will rise, and if it rises, we may not survive it. But even among this council of would-be rebels, none dared make the first move. That is, until Varys. His letters had already begun. Scattered ravens, flying toward the Vale, the Reach, even across the narrow sea. Each message the same. The true heir lives. Aegon Targaryen, son of Rhaegar, married to the Dragon Queen. He never signed them. He knew the risk. He'd seen kings burn for less, but he believed in the realm, and he no longer believed in her. Daenerys found out within days. It was Missandei who brought the note. Folded, unsigned but unmistakable in its intent, Daenerys read it in silence. Her lips didn't move. Her eyes didn't blink. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm. "Find him," and they did. Varys stood alone on the cliffs of Dragonstone, watching the waves when they came for him. He didn't beg, didn't run. He only looked at Jon, who arrived with Grey Worm, and nodded once. "I hope I was wrong about her," he said softly. Jon couldn't meet his eyes. That night, as Drogon's fire lit the sky, Daenerys watched from the balcony. Her hands were steady, her breath even. But inside, a voice screamed. She could feel Jon pulling away from her. She could feel the weight of every lord turning toward him. And worst of all, she could feel him not fighting it anymore. He came to her later, after the fire, said nothing, stood in the doorway like a stranger. "You could have stopped me," she said. "You didn't." Jon stared at her. "You didn't. Let me." She stepped closer. "Do you still love me?" He hesitated. That pause said everything. And somewhere deep in the walls of Dragonstone, where ravens no longer flew, the realm shifted. The first sword was drawn not in King's Landing, nor in the north, but in the Stormlands, far from the Iron Throne, far from dragons. It was drawn in silence, in a dim, torchlit corridor where a bannerman loyal to House Baratheon fell to his knees with a knife in his ribs. The man who killed him wore no sigil, carried no banner, and answered only to a single name whispered. In candlelit rooms, Aegon. That name had begun to echo across Westeros. Jon didn't want it. He never asked for it. But power, like wildfire, doesn't wait for permission to spread. Lords and ladies who once feared Daenerys now pinned their hopes to her husband, hopes he didn't understand, and burdens he couldn't carry without. Breaking. The letters Varys sent had taken root. In the Vale, Lord Robin Arryn, awkward and half-mad, declared for Aegon Targaryen. In the Reach, a cluster of lesser houses pledged support, remembering the horror of Brambleton. The Riverlands split in two. Some still followed Daenerys, others waited. And the North? The North was silent. Sansa said nothing publicly, but her. Soldiers stopped wearing the Queen's colours. Arya returned from her wandering without a word and began sharpening her blades. The Starks didn't speak treason, they prepared for it. Meanwhile, Jon stayed in Dragonstone, trapped between two worlds. He wanted to believe she could still be saved, that somewhere beneath the layers of fire and fear, the woman he'd fallen for still lived. But every day, that hope dimmed. Daenerys had become a shadow of herself. She no longer consulted Tyrion. She barely acknowledged Jon. She surrounded herself with the unsullied, with fire, with rage. Her once wide eyes had narrowed into something colder, tighter. When she spoke of her enemies, she used words like cleansing and necessary sacrifices. When she spoke of Jon, she didn't use his name. She called him the threat. Jon tried to reason with her one last time. It was late, the fire low, shadows long across their private chamber. "You don't have to rule through fear," he said. "They loved you once." She turned to him slowly. "And what did it bring me? Betrayal, doubt, treason. You call honesty treason. I call what you're not saying treason." Her voice was quiet, dangerous. "You stand in rooms with men who would see me fall. You let them speak. That makes you complicit. I've done nothing behind your back. You exist, Jon. That's enough." He stepped forward. "So what now? Do you burn me too?" Something flickered in her eyes. Pain, maybe. Or pity. "You're not like the others." That didn't save Varys. She stepped closer. Her hand touched his cheek. Soft, sad. "Don't make me choose between the throne and you." "You already did." He left the room before she could answer. The next morning, he found Tyrion in the great hall, staring at the carved map table. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Tyrion said, "She's planning something, something large." "What kind of something?" "She summoned all her forces to King's Landing." I asked her why. She said, "To make them kneel." Jon felt his stomach tighten. "The city will surrender," Tyrion nodded. "And if it doesn't..." They didn't say it. They didn't have to. Jon turned to leave. Tyrion grabbed his arm. "If you're going to stop her, Jon, it has to be now." That night, Jon stood in the courtyard beneath Dragonstone's towers. Ghost paced beside him, restless. Snow, real snow, began to fall, thin flakes drifting down from a grey sky. Winter was creeping in. He looked up. Drogon loomed on the cliffs. Above, watching, and across the courtyard, Daenerys stood in her black and crimson cloak, ready to ride. "You're leaving," Jon said. She nodded once. "King's Landing, I gave them time. Time's up." Jon stepped closer. "You won't burn the city. I'll burn defiance. You promised me. I promised a better world." She cut in sharply. "And I will give it to them." He stared at her then, really looked. Not as the woman he'd loved, not as the queen he'd married, but as the fire that might consume them all. "Then you leave me no choice." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Don't do this." "I have to." The wind howled between them. For a moment, it felt like the end of all things. And then she turned, mounted Drogon, and rose into the sky. Jon didn't watch her go. He only turned to Ghost and said the words he never thought he'd say again. "Summon the banners." The banners. The banners rose with eerie silence, not with the raucous war cries of the old kings or the pounding of drums from noble halls, but with cold steel and tired men who followed Jon not out of ambition, but necessity. Sansa sent 2,000 from the north, silent as snowfall. Gendry rode with 600 from the Stormlands, the Vale, the Riverlands, fractured, unsure, yet enough of them marched. They didn't raise Aegon's name, not openly, but they rode for the man they trusted, not the queen they feared. Jon led them with a heavy heart, not as a conqueror, but as a man walking toward his own judgment. Meanwhile, King's Landing braced for war. Daenerys arrived days before Jon. She did not hide. She circled the city on Drogon, casting shadows on red rooftops and whispering dread into the hearts below. No message, no parley, just wings and fire, a silent threat in the sky. She camped outside the city with her unsullied and Dothraki, the fields around the capital turning black under their boots. Grey Worm stood at her side always, a sword in hand, his loyalty absolute. Tyrion approached her tent once asking to speak. He didn't get past the guards. "She's done talking," Missandei told him, her voice a fraction colder than before. "The Queen knows what must be done." Inside the Red Keep, Cersei watched the chaos unfold from her high tower. But this time there was no smug smile, no golden goblets or cruel jokes, just silence. The city no longer feared her. They feared the Queen outside its gates, the dragon in the sky. She could feel it slipping away, her grip, her power, her child. Jaime had not returned, and in the pit of her stomach she knew this was her end. But Daenerys didn't attack yet. She waited. Why? Because she wanted Jon to see it happen. She wanted him to watch her take the throne the realm denied her. And maybe, deep inside, she wanted him to stop her. She still hoped. Jon arrived at dawn, flanked by northern banners and black cloaks. The city saw him and murmured, "The wolf has come." No fanfare, no horns, just rows of men on foot, weary from travel, armored for a war they prayed wouldn't come. He came to the gates of the city alone, no army behind him, just ghost. He asked to speak. Daenerys agreed. They met in the center field between two camps, under a grey sky, the burnt grass crunching beneath their boots. No guards, no blades, just them. She looked like a queen of ash. Silver hair braided tight, black and red cloak whipping in the wind. Her eyes tired but hard, her voice steady. "You're too late." "You don't have to do this," Jon said. "You think this city will kneel to mercy?" she asked. "I gave them the chance. They stayed loyal to her." "They stayed because they're afraid," he replied. "But they'll follow you if you show them something different, something better. I've shown them strength. They've seen fire." She took a step closer. Her voice broke just for a breath. "I loved you, Jon. I loved you too. So stand with me." "I am." "No, you're standing in my way." They stared at each other like strangers wearing the faces of old lovers. The silence between them held every wound, every broken promise. Finally, she said it. The one truth neither of them had wanted to admit. "You're not Aegon Targaryen to me. You're just another man who can take what I've earned." His jaw tightened. "I never wanted it, but the realm wants you. That's not my fault. It's not mine either," she snapped, then softer. "But I'm the one they'll crucify for it." She turned away before he could speak again. Her cloak billowed like smoke. "You have until sunrise," she said without turning back, "to surrender, or I burn the city." He didn't call after her, he just stood there. When he returned to camp, the council waited. Sansa, grim-faced and cloaked in the colors of Winterfell. Davos, weary and shaking his head. Arya stood in the corner, arms folded, a blade on each hip. "She's going to burn them all," Jon said quietly. "Then stop her," Sansa replied. "Or we will." Jon looked around the room. They were ready. They were done waiting. "I'll go first," Arya said. "I can get to her tent." "No." Jon's voice was firm. "She won't stop," Tyrion said. "She's past that now." Jon didn't answer right away. The weight on his shoulders was unbearable, and yet he knew what he had to do. "I'll speak with her again," he said. "Alone." Arya stepped forward. "You think you'll change her mind?" "No." "Then, why go?" Jon looked her in the eyes. "Because if someone's going to kill the woman I love," he swallowed hard, "it's going to be me." The corridors of Dragonstone were cold. Jon walked them in silence, his boots echoing down stone halls now emptied of trust. The sword at his side felt heavier than usual, not because of its steel, but because of what it might be forced to do. Dawn was close. A few hours, maybe less, until the sun touched the Red Keep and Daenerys decided if the realm should live or die. He knew what she was capable of. He had seen it. But part of him, some fragile, stubborn piece of his heart, still hoped. Still believed there was something left to save. When he reached her tent, the guards stepped aside without question. She had given them no orders to stop him. Inside, she stood at the war table, alone, staring down at the carved map of Westeros. Her fingers traced over King's Landing, like she was memorizing its shape before she destroyed it. She didn't look up. "I thought you wouldn't come," she said. "I wasn't sure I should." Now she turned. There were no tears, no rage, just a tired sadness that had settled deep in her bones. "I remember the first time I saw you," she whispered. "Beyond the wall. You were already broken, and still you fought." Jon stepped closer, voice low. "You weren't like this then. And you weren't Aegon Targaryen." He shook his head. "I'm still Jon Snow." "No," she said softer now. "You're not. That man wouldn't have doubted me." "I didn't doubt you." "You did," she snapped. "You just hid it better than the rest." Silence fell again, a long, aching silence. Jon stepped beside her, looking down at the map. "If you burn the city, you'll lose everything," he said. "I already have everything to lose. You still have me." She looked at him now, searching his eyes for a lie. But Jon had never been a liar. That's what made this harder. "I love you," she whispered. He closed his eyes. "I believe you," he said. "And I love you too." Then he stepped forward and kissed her. It was soft, real, a moment stolen from the ashes of their kingdom. But it didn't last, because as she leaned in, relief washing over her, Jon drew the dagger from his belt and buried it between her ribs. She gasped. No scream, no fury, just the shock of it. Her eyes widened, not in pain but in betrayal. His arms caught her before she fell, lowering her to the ground. "I'm sorry," he whispered into her hair, holding her as her blood stained his hands. "I'm so sorry." Her lips moved, trying to speak, but no sound came. Just a final breath, and the flicker of fire dying in her eyes. And then silence. The woman who had been born in fire died in the arms of the man who once swore to protect her. Outside, Drogon felt it, his cry ripped through the sky like thunder. Moments later, the great beast landed beside the tent. His massive head pushed through the flaps and found her body. He didn't burn Jon. He saw the dagger. He saw the body. And somehow, he understood. Instead, Drogon turned his fury on the Iron Throne. With a roar that shook the mountains, he unleashed fire, not on Jon, not on the armies, but on the very symbol of everything that had torn them apart. The throne melted under dragonfire, twisted into slag, until there was nothing left of the thing that had taken so much from so many. Then Drogon lifted Daenerys' body gently in his claws, rose into the clouds, and vanished. Jon stood, alone, covered in blood. When Tyrion and the others found him, he didn't resist. He confessed, not just to the killing, but to the truth of it all, of love, of fear, of the choice he made not for power, but for peace. The realm was in chaos again. Cersei was dead, Daenerys was gone, and Jon Snow, once a bastard, then a king, then a husband, was now a kinslayer. He refused the throne. The lords begged, some demanded, but Jon said no, again and again. He had killed a queen, burned a crown, and buried the only woman he'd ever truly loved. That was his legacy now. In the end, the council exiled him. They let Bran rule, if only to keep the peace. The realm didn't cheer. It just moved on, wounded but breathing. Jon returned to the north, not to Winterfell, but beyond it, past the wall where duty and honor had once defined him, and where nothing more could be asked of him. Ghost at his side, snow at his feet, no crown, no war, just silence and memory. He never spoke her name again, but every time the wind howled across the tundra and the cold bit at his bones, he remembered her fire. It had almost saved the world. Almost.